Hi everyone. Welcome to today's webinar entitled Wealth Rules from the Richest Man in Babylon. So this is the ancient city of Babylon, known as one of the famous cities because of its wealth. So if you guys remember from our grade school days, maybe we were all asked to memorize the seven wonders of the world. So the Hanging Gardens of Babylon is one of them, and it's a proof of Babylon's splendor. And remarkably, the teachings from the 6th to 7th century still applies to date. Did you guys ever wonder why the Babylonians were very wealthy? It's because they understood how money works. So today's topic is very interesting. I'm sure for a lot of people also, because we will be talking about the learnings, laws, and rules from the famous book and the Richest Man in Babylon. So just to give you a background, this book was published in 1926. It was written by George S. Clason, and in this book, he dispenses financial advice through a collection of parables set around 4,000 years in ancient Babylon. So, to date, the book is still in print, which is proof that it's still applicable until today. Most especially, probably at this time of a pandemic, most people are going through a financial crisis. So, like for me personally, if you ask me what advice is best to give someone who is going through a crisis, I would say it's going back to basics. So, today's discussion is going to be very helpful. We will help you all go back to basics. And, we have guest experts who will be guiding us through today. I'd like to welcome our first guest is Catherine Ocariz-Florencio. So, Kat is a licensed real estate broker who now handles her own company called SQFT Global Properties Philippines. So she's very active in the business. You'll see with all her accomplishments, she graduated with a degree in management from the Ateneo de Manila University. Hi, Kat. Welcome.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for saying yes to our invite. And next, we also have another expert. We have Mr. Dino Aquino, 14 years in the business. So he's a vice president and head of fixed income, trust, and asset management in one of the biggest banks in the country. So an experienced trader, and we're so happy to be learning from him today. He graduated and took up his master's in management from the University of Asia and the Pacific. Welcome, Dina.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for saying yes. Okay, so let's start. In the book The Richest Man in Babylon, okay, there's a fictional character, a Babylonian character called Arkad. Arkad is a poor scribe who became the richest man in Babylon. Okay, so in the stories that he told in the book, he talked about first is what we call the seven cures. Okay, seven cures, or in simple terms, it's how to generate money and wealth. So I would like to ask our guests, maybe you can share with us practical tips or your personal experiences on these seven cures to a lean purse. So again, we just focus first on generating money and wealth, especially applicable at this time of a pandemic. Okay, so maybe we can start with the first one, saving 10% of your income. So what can you guys say about this? Is the 10%, does the 10% have a scientific explanation?
Okay, I think the 10% has always come from, well, in a sense, it's biblical. A lot of us actually heard of this term first during, I guess, growing up. Me as a kid, I've always heard of this 10% as like the tithes in the church. So it's something, I guess, that you devote also to your God. But in that concept, it's more of like uh, before you get into something, you fulfill your cup first.
Well,
So
for me, I think the 10% is practical if you consider the tax we pay. Our income tax is around 30%, right? So if you
Yep.
include that, then you're basically left with 50 to 60% of your net take home pay. So if you want to, for me, I think 10% is not a hard rule, but definitely it's something that we should also always keep in mind. Um, Take note that our expenses, there's also a saying that your expenses should not go beyond 50% of your income. So ideally that 10% is not really a hard number, but something that we can at least put a benchmark on. And if you can save more than 10% from your monthly income, then it would be better.
Okay, so I guess this is a good start. So this is 10% of the
Take
net
home.
income.
Yeah, take home
So
pay.
total income, 10%, we take it out for
Yeah.
savings already. Okay. What about, so you guys do this, or probably even more than 10%?
Yeah, we put a benchmark personally, but we have to, especially now that times are very uncertain given the pandemic and all. So you can at least have some rainy day funds
Yes,
just in
that's true.
case there's something goes on.
I'm sure a lot of people experience that. In the
Yeah,
pandemic, we started to touch our savings, right?
yeah.
It's
So
either some lost their jobs or, it got cut down a huge
yeah,
percentage. Okay,
of
so
course, other
yes,
hospital bills. Then if someone gets sick, diba? Especially this time when a lot of people
yeah,
are getting
that's
sick.
true.
So it's nice to have something in some emergency funds, if you call it.
Okay, so the 10%, we can consider that our emergency fund.
Yep.
Control your spending. Maybe some practical tips on how we can actually do this.
Well, for me, if you're familiar with Jay Z, of course,
Mm-hmm.
the hip hop mogul, he gave a financial tip once.
hello, hello.
If you can't buy it twice, you can't afford it. So
Yes.
I think that's one very useful tip when it comes to spending. Um, Admittedly, it's really hard to control your spending, especially during these times that there's a lot of things going on and your anxiety kicks in. So there's a lot of things that you would do to at least make you happy. Then spending is one thing, right? Shopping,
Mm-hmm.
buying things you don't necessarily need, but at least would give you that sense of satisfaction during these hard times. But again, according to Jay Z, but not it's not really a bad advice if you think about it. When
Yeah.
you say if you can't buy it twice, it means that you can't afford it. So it's not really that bad of an advice. If you consider, say, buying a pair of shoes, say
Mm-hmm.
it's about 5,000 pesos, diba? If you consider buying it like twice, then you have to spend 10,000 pesos. Would
Yeah.
you think twice? Of course, you would think twice, diba? Kasi it's not
Mm-hmm.
5,000 na lang. It's 10,000. So
Yeah. So thank you, Dino. So the savings,
yeah,
it has to come first.
yeah, it
So
has
you're
to come
right. If
first.
you can't buy it twice, then probably you can't afford it. What we want is to make sure that even if we spend on something, we still have that extra left.
Yeah, agree.
Let's go back to the first cure. How do we save? This is a question from the audience. How do we save 10%? O nga naman, if income is not enough.
Well,
Let's say it's enough for spending.
yeah. Well, of course, that's very tricky, diba? If you consider that your income is not really enough in terms of your lifestyle, in terms of your spending, um, I guess we have no choice, diba, at that point, diba? But of course, moving forward, if your income becomes enough, then that's the time we consider it. At the end of the day, like when we all started working, of course, the salary that we got when we started, when we were young, was really small. It won't
Mm-hmm.
be enough, diba? Um,
Yeah.
but it also won't be. It also doesn't rule the fact that your discipline. You shouldn't take away the discipline down the line. At the end of the day, it won't be enough, of course, to start. There are times that it's going to be really hard, But of course, the discipline when it comes to the time that it will be enough, then then you
Mhm.
should also keep that in mind all the time.
Okay, just to recap, I guess I saw some questions there. I did hear what Dino mentioned, but personally, I guess someone asked if 10% is not enough. That's what I see on my screen, at least. So basically, when I started young, I was very independent. So I started, from the bottom of uh, like a minimum salary, fresh graduate. And then
Mhm.
I hear about this concept already of 10% saving up. And at that time, I was like, 10%, then I don't have enough to spend on anything anymore. Like
You
I'm left
did.
with maybe like 10 pesos. But
Exactly.
so I guess the concept there is more of the discipline and having that in mind that you still need to save something. So it's all about working within your means also. So if for example, I think at that time kasi I was in Makati, corporate fresh grad. I was like, oh, Starbucks, lunch, you work with a discipline in mind na, okay, I can't afford that Starbucks right now. I need to
Mhm.
save. I can't go on these luxurious trips that my other friends are going into. So it's sacrifice at the end. So I used to find other ways. I used to do side projects. I used to um, do some sort of consulting or helping work, anything that would give me extra income also. So at the start pa lang, there's a certain discipline already. And I guess that ties in into number two in controlling your spending. So it
Mhm.
kind of comes hand in hand. You control your spending and you save some income. It's a matter of discipline and instilling that at the very start. So it's like a good foundation. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's also what Dino said. And thank you for mentioning discipline because it is the real
Okay.
good foundation, right? If you don't have the discipline, you won't even think of saving
Yeah.
and even controlling your spending. More so, start investing, right? Invest. It's a cure to a
Yes.
lean purse. Okay. Is it a good time to invest at this time?
For investing, I'm really more into the real estate side of things, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that I wish I got into earlier, when I was so much younger. Even right now, thinking back, I wish I had done it when I was fresh grad. Investing into a real estate project. Okay, invest in. If you ask me if it's the best time to invest, definitely during pandemic. Developers, especially the ones with pre-selling projects, are now extending like super low terms that they normally won't extend even before. So there are very light payment terms that you haven't seen before that they
Mm-hmm.
extend to. And also because of the pandemic, so a lot of owners or there's a lot of those good deals that you'll be able to find. So depending on your capacity right now, if we're talking about new investors, I would
Mm-hmm.
suggest looking into developer projects. Of course, you do your research. Who are the top developers to invest in, and then they do have these. They call it pandemic terms. So it's a perfect
Mm-hmm.
time to look into investment there. And I wish I had gone into real estate investment early on when I was so much younger, because actually you can find a way to go around it and pay these there's some that have no down payment terms, low monthly terms. This is something you can work around with. And definitely, real estate is something that can jumpstart you into getting like a bigger profile in terms of your investment or investment portfolio. So that's me on the real estate side. Dino can take on the rest.
Go
Well,
ahead.
there's a saying by Warren Buffett, if I'm not mistaken. Um, the best time to invest was 10 years ago. The next best time is now. So that's one thing that's really that caught my attention before. Kasi if you look at it, say for example, I started working in 2003. Tama ba? This seems like a very
Or
long time.
counting.
You're giving away your age.
Yeah, I'm giving away my age, eh, diba? So
Very
yeah,
young.
I started working in 2003. So just to give you a background, I went through the 2008 financial crisis already, and then last year's
Yeah.
pandemic, diba? Again, going back to the saying, the best time to invest was 10 years ago. The next best time is now. When I entered the market, 2003, well, I was already in treasury at that time. So I was doing, well, financial markets at that time. So I was pretty much exposed to the stock market, the bond market at a very young age. Just to give you an idea, I recall buying JG Summit stock at that time. I'm not saying
Wow.
if it's a JG Summit or Mega World. But the price then was around 3 pesos, 4 pesos per share.
Wow.
Now it's 61,
Okay.
di ba?
Yeah.
And if you look at another stock in mind, Citibank shares, it's a US stock, Citibank. Citibank was during 2008, the financial crisis, the Lehman Brothers crash. Citibank
$3.
share, yeah, it was, I think it's less than a dollar. It was a dollar. It's now $71 per share.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, if it just held on, but of course, everything is in hindsight, diba? So we have to take into consideration what's happening now. Um, there's always there's always this notion that every time there's something bad that's happening, like right now in a pandemic, it's
Mhm.
nice to save. But actually, the most prudent investors actually invest during this time. If you recall, the stock market plunged last year to I think 4,000. The PSEI dropped to 4,000 during prior to the first announcement of ECQ. Now it's around 6,500. So if you just took a risk at that time, of course you would have made money. But of course, right now, if you look at the PSEI, it's around 6,500 still. It's still relatively cheap. So if you're taking into consideration a 5-year investment horizon, I think it's pretty good to invest already at this point. Um, you have to take into consideration that coming out of a pandemic, eventually the reopening will come sooner. Vaccine rollouts have been going on very, very well. If you look at the US markets, they've been performing very well. Apple shares, I think, doubled or tripled their value over the last year or so. So if that's one thing you can consider, then we can actually consider investing also in the local markets as well as other ASEANs. The ASEAN regions have been lagging due to the recent Delta scare that's happening. If you
Mhm.
look at Indonesia, they've been I think they're the epicenter right now in terms of the um, Delta virus. So ASEANs are lagging, but eventually we can come out of this, and it's something that we can consider moving forward. A lot of people actually. There's also another saying. I'm not sure who said it, but people make money in a good market, in a bull market, but people make a
Mhm.
fortune in a crisis. So that's one thing you can take into consideration.
Yeah. So thank you. You guys just shared. It's actually a good time to invest now. Real
Yeah.
estate, considering they extend pandemic terms, and with stocks, it's going to get better soon. At what age should someone start saving and investing? Because based on your experiences, you guys talked about when you started working, you thought about 10% savings and then investments. Generally, at what age? Because as kids, we get allowances too. So is it like, should we already start saving and probably investing somewhere?
Yes, definitely. For me, my experience, uh, my my parents have started giving me allowance as young as when I was grade school, no? And in fact, I have started doing started saving my own allowance to buy stuff that I wanted, like even as
Okay.
simple as I wanted chocolates because my mom never bought me chocolates as a kid. So I would get it from the allowance that they give us. So I think instilling that discipline as young as, I guess, grade school or even
Mhm.
younger than that, you can um, instill in your children the concept of saving.
Another question: would you recommend investing savings, or savings has to be just emergency fund? Don't touch it. Don't invest it. Set aside another fund.
Well, in reality, you can't grow your money by purely saving. You actually grow your money by making more, right? So
Okay.
if you really want to make your money grow, you should really invest your savings. Of course, there are risk profiles naman eh. Na, of course, if you're conservative, you go for the fixed income or the TDs, time deposits. And if you're a bit more on the aggressive side, then you go on equities or even real estate, di ba? Um, Kasi at the end of the day, it's not really ano eh, you're not really wasting it eh. You're actually investing it to make it grow. So you're not really spending your saving, you're actually investing. So for there's the potential for it to grow is making it more attractive, di ba?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. We will talk more about investments later on when we talk about the loss. All right. Guarding your investment. Just briefly, your thoughts on guarding investments.
I guess it's also it kind of ties in with the previous one that Dino answered, that it depends on the risk appetite that you have.
Yeah.
Um, Definitely more riskier profiles would go for riskier investments. That I guess we can talk more about later on. But the guarding
Okay.
your investments, it's really more on, for me personally, it's on your investment appetite. When I was younger, I would be, of course, more guarded with where I put my money. But right now, I'm like much riskier in terms of where I put my money. So there.
All right. Thanks, Kat. Let's link it to owning your home since you're in the business. How is owning your home a cure to a lean purse?
Okay, so owning your home. There are two concepts here that actually I wanted to share. There's a more progressive thinking now, um, in terms of investing in real estate, no. So there are two kinds kasi that I want to establish when you get into real estate investment. So there's buying for an end use, meaning you using it, and this is the concept of owning your home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a more traditional way of thinking. Basically, our mothers, our lolos or lolas would always tell us, nothing better than owning your home or living in the home that you bought, because you're not wasting your money in rent, right? But actually, there's a more progressive thinking now that I wanted to share, that investing in real estate is uh, something that can jumpstart really in growing your portfolio tenfold. So in this concept, it's what I used to say is, uh, buy what you can rent out, and then rent what you can uh, basically live in. So the concept there is basically, when you invest in real estate, you're really thinking about investment. When you're talking about investment, you're growing your asset. So you buy into a property that you can grow eventually. So you can sell tenfold. So, for example, if you were to buy, let's say, in a luxurious home, right? There are payment terms there. You can invest in it now, or say in an Ayala property that is costing us at at a younger age, you wouldn't even think about investing because you can't afford it. But
Yeah.
actually, with the terms, you can afford it. Because at for example, the price that you bought it for now is gonna be 10 times the value in like 10 years.
Yeah.
So invest now so that in 10 years time that value already appreciated and you've already accumulated that much asset. Meanwhile, the concept, the what I'm saying, the progressive thinking is you invest in that property that you know that can appreciate tenfold, while you can actually just rent out where you want to live. So like I live in BGC, that can like help with my business right now. Like they would say like, oh, you're living in BGC, it's mahal there, you know, you're not practical, blah 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 blah, but I
Mm-hmm.
can afford the rent. But I'm also investing in another property, so that property is growing and I can also still rent where I live in. So
Yeah.
it's not the traditional thinking. Is like my parents would always tell me, why are you renting there, um, you should go own a home and live there. But what I can afford na own is not in the city. You know, it's probably somewhere in Laguna or in BF that I can't afford, and it's giving me more expenses. So my point here is invest in real estate that can grow your actual asset,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what you own, and you can still enjoy the lifestyle of being practical in the city by renting.
Yeah. Let's quickly answer this question. Easiest way to get into investing. I think this is very specific and the minimum recommended amount. Maybe Dino can help us with this. Easiest way. I'm not
Well,
like a huge earner.
savvy.
So easiest
Yeah.
way.
Well, actually, the easiest way is to get a fixed income asset. When I say
Fixed
fixed
income.
income, it pays coupons every 6 months or sometimes every quarter. So, for example, a government bond, a retail treasury bond, which is issued by
Mhm.
our government, it's actually the safest form of investment. It's actually even safer than the ones than your typical time deposit um, investments kasi it's being guaranteed by the national government. So it's actually pretty safe. And at the same time, it pays coupons every 3 months. So it's the potential returns is not as big as if you compare it versus the income you can earn from the stock market or from investing in real estate, but it's pretty basic. And at the same time, the minimum amount, if I'm not mistaken, for a retail treasury bond issued by the government is around 5,000 only. So you can just keep adding, keep buying those investments, and at the same time, you get coupons naman, and also you get the entire face amount upon the maturity of the bond. So it's actually pretty safe and pretty simple.
Okay, I'll take that advice. That's very good. Thank you.